to you guys about Lost Girl. Not so much Lost Girl, but a problem that I have seen in Lost Girl that has bothered me immensely this past season. Now, by the time this video gets posted, the finale to season 3 would have aired in Canada. I don't know what happens because it's right now, it's Sunday, so I am not Sunday at like 1 a.m. So there will be no spoilers for that here. This is mostly talking about an issue that I see happen in a lot of girl positive media that is afraid to take on the label of feminism. Now, a long time ago, not that long ago, but a while back, the YouTuber from Feminist Frequency did a whole video about straw feminism, and there are a few tidbits of that in here, but it's more so of this issue that I realize is that not every strong female protagonist is necessarily a feminist one, and I accept that because the reality is that not every woman's going to be a feminist. And I think of, Scarlett O'Hara, who is in no way, shape, or form a feminist lead, but she is a strong female character, even though I don't particularly like her. And there is also has to be this understanding of that, to be a feminist character is more than just being a strong woman. It's about supporting women and encouraging other women to reach their full potential and not shaming them or putting them down, and wanting them to be the best at what they choose to be. At least that's how I view it. And while not every female character will be feminist, you can always have feminist theory about anything. The thing about literary theory or any kind of theory is that you apply it onto something. You don't necessarily have it to be that for it to come through. I mean, how much queer theory that we have is based on homoeroticism that is really just contextual rather than actually subtextual, actually, rather than actually contextual. So I have no problem in general with strong female leads not having to necessarily tie feminism into who they are, because I think you can still get feminist aspects and do feminist theory with them. And even though I disagree with it morally, I do understand why certain writers don't want their female leads to be associated with feminism, because when it comes down to it, at the end of the day, it is going to be seen as a negative to a larger audience than it would attract. Now, that being said, Lost Girl has had this recently, especially in this season, with being very anti-feminist, especially with the episode Caged Fae and the episode that aired about 2 weeks ago, Adventures in Face Sitting. And it upset me, not because I don't think the writers have a right to write the characters how they want, but because it felt, one, unnecessary to have those kind of things in the episode, and also because I feel like they missed a really good opportunity to really analyze things about feminism that would affect their actual characters, rather than just using cheap effects or cheap stereotypes to separate themselves from that political movement. So just to kind of rehash, in Caged Fae you had very misandrist upped Amazons, and they'll refer to them as feminazis, and there was a very anti-male focus towards the Amazons, which I get. And then it's also because I've seen as someone who loves Xena, and I think Xena's a great example of a show that doesn't do these same things, of actually not being afraid to have their female protagonists be strong women and not have to feel the bash on feminism, is that the Amazons, while they are an all-female society, it doesn't have to mean direct antagonism with males if you write it properly, because the idea of having a matriarchal society, while a lot of people try to say it shows how a matriarchal society would be bad just as much as a patriarchal society, the whole thing is that the Amazons are not a society. They're just an all women's world. There are no men to be directly affected by it socially. Because if it was a matriarchal society that would be equivalent to ours, it would have to have men directly in it. And they're not. So that kind of equation is just, it doesn't make sense because you can't directly parallel it with what we actually have, because these are not women-led with mixed gendered societies. These are women-led and only cis women in it. So that comparison is just kind of washy. But so they made very misandrous Amazons and had them refer to feminazis and took it to the nth degree, to a level that I just kind of found was very kind of off-putting. And then in Faye Babysitting, they had these desperate housewife type characters killing off men and dressing up as empowerment. You know, this is the first time we've ever had someone refer to the patriarchy, and it was totally used for like lols and whatever, like, oh, she's nuts. So it was very much straw feminism 101, and it was upsetting because, one, it could have been done so well, because, alright, so you have Bo, who is a bisexual woman, and even though she is Faye, she has grown up in our society, because up until the last 3 years, she didn't know what Faye were. So she lived as a regular person. And as a bisexual woman, and therefore being a queer woman, I'm sorry if some people don't approve of the term queer, but just for the sake of thinking I'm using that term, as a queer woman, feminism has not always been very intersectional when it came to sexuality, race, and transgender and other classes. So Bo, being a bisexual woman, would have a natural reason to not be pro-feminist or to label herself as a feminist while being pro-woman, as well as Kenzie. Kenzie is lower class and immigrant background. I'm pretty sure she's first generation. Her actress is, so I'm just assuming, no, not first generation, I mean her actress is foreign born. And so I'm assuming that Kenzie is sort of as well. So you have an immigrant woman and also a lower class woman. And these are two sections of women that were ignored and are still kind of ignored in feminism, especially when it comes to sexuality. So to have Bo and Kenzie dealing with basically the archetype of the problems that exist in feminism with these middle class, upper class, Caucasian, straight, cis women would be perfect, because you could actually have them going against women and addressing the issues within the group about why it would isolate people like them, because that's there, and that's a very valid, solid reason for some women to be like, no, I don't identify with the group because of this, this, and this, having to do with how it affects me as a woman. Instead, however, all they focus on is how it affects men. The lead witch person, she uses her magic to kill a guy that cheated on her. She uses it to kill some guy that turned her down. It's all done as a way of how it affects men. It isn't really about how it affects women. I think that's the most frustrating thing about the straw feminist and these shows that want to bash feminism is that there are actual issues that affect the movement about how it affects women and how it is kind of like, you know, a mixed bag for women. You know, how it's not as inclusive as it should be, and therefore some women of certain backgrounds and origins would be averse to it. But no, it's all about how it affects guys. And while I know that there are radical feminists, they are not the majority. They are vocal and very loud, and I think they are the ones that people will focus on because they are so easily to be made looked a certain way. But regardless, that is not as important as I think the issues that affect women as well. Because this is a show where you have a female lead and her female best friend solving crimes and doing stuff. And the show has been labeling itself and Bo to be very anti-establishment from day one. And yet, when there are women present who are also anti-establishment but tilt towards a feminist label, they are suddenly feminazis and bitches and crazy. And it just kind of seems like, okay, this is so you can just separate yourself from the movement, not to actually make sense. And this happens so often that it becomes frustrating because I feel like, alright, say you do want to address the issue of feminism and how it works with men. Can you do it in a smart way? Like, can you do it in a way that deals with whatever things that guys may feel about in an intellectual way without having to make one group look crazy as a way to justify your dislike of them in the first place? Because one, that's not good writing to begin with. Like, it's a really corny trope that's played out, and there is no depth. And the thing about it too is that their straw feminism does not affect the plot in any way. It's not integral to the plot. Like, the women in that babysitting episode, there was no reason for them to be straw feminists, but they were just to prove a point that Bo wasn't one of them. You know, it's just to prove a point like, okay, we have strong female leads, but they're not crazy like those chicks. These are the good girls. These are the girls who, you know, love their guys and won't kill the men, and they're safe, and that's all that is. And there's no depth to that. There's nothing extraordinary about that. It's just really, really tacky. And then the other thing is that as subversive as Lost Girl tries to be about things, I feel like they try to be one thing, but they write themselves a different way. Like, I won't even start on the race fails that happen on the show because there are just too many to count. But I'm so used to that in sci-fi that it almost doesn't affect me as much as the feminist fails, because it's just so opposite of what the show tries to be on a daily basis, on a weekly basis, or to say. Because let's say, okay, you have Bo and Kenzie and they're the female leads, so it's cool and you got that safe. Except that you have no women in charge that are positive characters. Because I'm trying to go back, because it's been a while since I watched every episode, but I just watched it all the seasons before I watched this one. Alright, so you have the Morrigan, who is evil, and she's really the only main female leader of anything, and she's leader of the Dark Fae, and she's evil, and she hates Bo. Then you had that woman who was the leader, the Glaive. You had her, and she was sketchy as well. And then you have Aoife, who was treated to be completely evil and rapey and all these kind of things, and she was horrible. And the only people you have to balance that out are your protagonists, but at the same time, Bo constantly has to be saved by somebody. So her agency is always sort of questionable because she always has to be saved. Like, what really frustrated me about the whole Dawning arc was that even at the end, Dyson came to help her. And I know it's meant to be seen as a romantic gesture, not as anything really, like, textual, but just thinking about it, just like, so this is an event that's important to a Fae that every Fae goes through, and Bo can't do it by herself. Dyson has to insert himself into her thing to be a hero and block her from getting hit. All those kind of things. It's like, Bo is supposed to be the strong person here. She's the one who's supposed to take care of herself, but everyone's always taking care of her. Yes, there'll be some episodes where she does do her own thing, but like, if you count the time that she has to be saved or helped or protected by somebody to get the job done, the times where she does it by herself, they're so unbalanced. And it wouldn't, I know you want to have someone help them out, and I agree that she should be helped, and it's not horrible to have her be stood all the time. But I don't think it's wrong for her to need help sometimes, because she doesn't know everything, and then she would be perfect. Except that, one, it happens too often to make her seem credible. And then two, even though she gets saved so often, everyone keeps regurgitating how amazing she is, how powerful she is, how strong she is, yet she's always getting saved. And Dyson is a lot of time doing the saving or trick. And then when you turn it to look at the male leaders that we've had, even though the Ash was not great, he was never treated with the ear of the Morgan. Lachlan ended up being a great guy in the end. Trick, super sketch, but he's Beau's grandpa, and we're supposed to like him anyway. Hale's a new Ash, positive. You know, we have so many more positive male leaders that run shit on the daily, and negative, evil female leaders who are just seen as being batshit. And I'm sure there are probably one or two that were good, but at the same time, there's this huge disbalance between what the show wants us to take from it and what it actually presents. And it just isn't consistent. It just isn't consistent with what it wants to be. Because you have Trick and Dyson and all these people, like, manipulating and doing stuff, but they never get blamed for it. Like, what always pisses me off is how, like, Lauren will make a mistake and it'll be the worst thing in the whole entire world. It's like, Lauren, how could you not believe Beau? But Dyson will also not believe Beau, and it's like, whatever. You know, Dyson will lie to Beau since pretty much the moment that they met, but she will want to be in love with him anyway. Lauren will make a mistake with the good intentions, and while she's deserved to be disliked, she has to go through a whole redemption thing to actually get back together with Beau, but Dyson just gets off scot-free. It's like, you want to be girl positive, but you don't really be girl positive. Not consistently. I mean, there are really good episodes of Lost Girl that do these things, but with these anti-feminist episodes, on top of just things that they've done in the past, it just seems like as much as they want to be girl positive, they also don't want to turn off their fan base, which is weird because their fan base is, as far as I'm concerned, not mainly, but a lot of them are lesbians and women who would love to see more female positive things. But then again, you also get the people who will, like, pit Lauren and Tamsin against each other and call one a bitch and whatever. I swear, if Taylor was black, people would hate the shit out of her, but that's besides the point. And then the other thing that I think disturbs me the most about these things going on is that Caged Fae and Adventures in Fae Babysitting were both written by women. And I can't help but wonder what their intentions were. Did they mean to try and say something about feminism, with Beau being the voice of reason and the other ones being the radicals, to prove something? But then again, it doesn't really seem that they tried to prove anything. It more just seemed like they were just working with stereotypes that they knew worked. It doesn't seem like there was anything that they were really trying to say. Like, I'm wrapping my mind, like, maybe they're trying to say this, maybe they're trying to say that, maybe they're trying to be deeper, and I'm just not getting it. And if I'm not getting it, please tell me. And I know some people are probably like, I don't care if it's feminist or not. And the thing about it too, my problem isn't that the show isn't feminist, because with Beau's character and Kenzie's character, I could get why they wouldn't be. But what I don't understand is why you make these episodes centered around something so specific that is so against the core of what you want your show to be about. This is supposed to be a show about a female and her female best friend solving crimes and being besties and doing cool things together. That's the epitome of what a girl positive show is. Why does that mean that you have to automatically be like, okay, we have a girl positive show, let's bash feminism so that we know that no one can ever say that we're a feminist show. Just bash, 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 bash. And I keep trying to think, like, maybe I'm missing something, maybe I'm missing. I just feel like, you know, you don't have to attack one thing to make it good. I mean, Buffy, female positive show, and you could argue that it's a feminist show. It has its feminist flaws, of course, because it's not perfect, but it never felt the need to, like, point at a straw feminist and go like, you evil woman, you are evil, and no, Xena, which I think is one of the most feminist shows ever, never turned off people for not declaring themselves not to be a feminist show. You know, you are not isolating people with those episodes. And while I don't think a lot of people cared about this issue, because I think a lot of people like Lost Girl for the titillation, and I'll admit, I do too. I mean, I watch the show for the characters, not the plot, but I can't ignore what I think is kind of the problematic issues about the show. But however, after I do this serious video, I'll be doing a video talking about what I loved about this season, what I didn't like about this season, once I see the finale on Monday, because I don't have my laptop with me, which is why this is not getting posted until